The Grand Decline. If you've been on this channel before, you probably know what the Grand Decline is. You know, it's my upcoming 26-hour-long level. No. That is not where the Grand Decline comes from. The Grand Decline is a mega project created by Phi, known more under its caretaker moniker, The Artifacts, and is an Everywhere at the End of Time fan project in which it aims to capture the progression of, you guessed it, Alzheimer's disease in the most detailed way possible. Over its 290-track series on Bandcamp, it manages to clock in at a runtime of 26 hours, 45 minutes, and 40 seconds, making it one of the most length caretaker FPs of all time, below Forevermore and Nevermore, which is almost 5 hours longer. Now, why am I making a video on this? Well, I mean, I literally see no one talk about the Grand Decline. I don't see any explanation videos on it. Anyways, I've been really interested in this fan project, as well as other fan projects in general, like Milwaukee Protocol and Everywhere in the Beginning of Nowhere. But this one is the one that stood out to me the most, due to the fact that, in my opinion, the album portrays Alzheimer's so well. Anyways, the Grand Decline is split into acts 1, 2, and 3, which are further split into scenes 1 through 9, and which are split into visits 1 through 36, which are then split into the individual tracks. Scene 1, named The Unaware Bliss, is the first scene of the Grand Decline. Scene 1 starts off with the first track named Visit 1, that's what the V stands for. The Grand Hall opens wide. This scene was released in full on October 2nd, 2021, and the scene's vibe is reminiscent of nostalgia, and because of that, the distortions are essentially non-existent and the tracks sound clear. The patient that this entire album is taking place in is healthy and shows no symptoms. Now, to be fair, this scene's alright. It is lacking, but it is the first scene of this entire collection of albums, so I'll just give it extra points since we still have another 8 scenes to go. The song names are as follows: The Grand Hall Opens Wide, Days Long Gone, A Joyous Reminiscence, Bleak Moments Are Bound to Be, Dreamwalking, A Peaceful Morning Stroll, Times We'll Never Forget, My Love for You Shall Never Die, A Toast to Our Endeavors, Night Skies Drifting, Dance in the Rain a While, The Past Calls Back Faintly, Walking Upon Worn Pathways, Sudden Displacement, The Future Is Yet to Be, Time Is Slowly Trickling Out, On a Boat Out to Sea, Glasses Tinted of Grey, Old Ringing Stadium Tunes, My Heart's Becoming Numb, Denial Floods the Mind, Perception Begins to Go Awry, Roses for Maurice, and finally, Leaving the Past Behind. Scene 2, named The Persistent Denial, is the second scene of the Grand Decline, which starts with V4, The Great Doors Begin to Close In, and was released in full on April 26, 2022. This is the scene where the mood is generally lower than the last scene, in which the tracks reflect forgetfulness of the great days, and others wanted to relive them, but to no avail. Now this is a step up from Scene 1. I really love the atmosphere of this scene. The mood being generally lower opposed to the previous scene, as it shows in the patient's emotions, has begun to become much lower from their condition, making them fail to remember what their lives were like during these, quote, great days. The tracks in Scene 2 are as follows: The Great Doors Begin to Close In, Silent Moments in Solitary, Fragments of Joy Caught in the Mist, Despair Shatters What Remains of Hope, A Brash Rebuke to the Path Ahead, An Unsaid Rhythm Down Below, Festivities Give Way to Stagnant Bliss, Failures in Cognition Relapse Further, What Stars May Fade, The Clouds Begin to Darken, Shards of Light Dot the Skies, In a Moment Before the Sun Falls, In a Moment Before the Sun Falls, Tumult Line the Corridors of Thought, A Calm Reminiscence in Dark Times, A Hole in the Overcast, Dreams of Better Days, Blue Waters, These Fading Old Memoirs, A Nightly Dance of Despair, In a Moment of Solace, Stark Contrasts in Emotion, The Skies Continue to Fade, Into a Bitter Descent, Another Broken Daydream, Approaching the Edge of Pitfall, The Soft Lights Aglow, Drifting Swiftly, Hidden by the Ever-Present Fog, Marching Down Broken Lanes, Feelings of Doubt Wash Over, Cold Evening Night, Reaching into the Drifting Past, Approaching Inescapable Storm, A Bid Farewell to Hope, then finally, I Am Lost. Scene 3, probably my favorite out of the 9, named The Broken Despair, is the third scene of the Grand Decline, which starts with V8-1, The Elusiveness of Before, which was released in full on August 29, 2022. Like Scene 2, this scene's mood continues with that sad, depressing feeling, with tracks becoming more somber and sad, as well as the beginning of some distortions becoming noticeable. Why is this my favorite? Well, from V10-6 to V12-H12, These show the 5 stages of grief, shortly after their diagnosis on November 17, 2003, which is what the song between V10.5 and V10.6 is named after. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally, acceptance. The song names are as follows. We're going to be here for a while. The elusiveness of before, a facade of joy. Continued depressive regression, left in the mist. Sands of time continue to flow, far beyond reach. The whole world left altered. Another day gone by. Seldom sights of bliss. Obscurations of myself. Disillusion near. Broken seldom bliss. Once in a blue moon. Distortions begin to manifest. A tear in the film, clouded by dismal days. Feelings of fading away. Yet the future is soon to be. The calm before the storm. Dreary autumn evening. Notes of broken hope. A star. That's actually the favorite out of all the songs in the Grand Decline. 11/17/2003. Left in ruins. Downward spiral into desolation. Reprieve to no avail. Fading attempts at recall. Impeding road beyond. Indignant ruptures. Ever-present anguish. My conscience lay in pieces. Sundowned aggregations. Like embers from a flame. A dance of breaking hearts. If only the light return. Faulty recall 1. There is no other side. A new definition of self. Fractured prospects. Plumes of root fill the air. Hope sinks into the gray mist. Absolute despair. Obstructions of vacancy. Forlorn years ahead. Drifting further away. Crying for respite. No reprieve. Faulty recall 2. Under a veil of aspiration. And finally, caving in. Scene 4, named The Decrepit Shift, is the 4th scene and final scene of Act 1, released in full on February 28, 2023, and starts off with V13.1, These Great Corridors Echo On. Now, unlike previous scenes, this scene puts more emphasis on the degradation of memories rather than actual emotion in the patient. Because of this shift in mood, it is tranquil to aggressive to just plain hollowness. These shifts in mood could be from the representation of the patient's mood swings because of the current state of their condition. Okay, Scene 4, this is something I'll say the least. Granted, the mood is all over the place like I mentioned earlier, however, I can say it does make a good job of some bits of distortion, like with the faulty recalls. The song names are as follows. These great corridors echo on. Times of solemn thoughts, dismal nights, tales of... Oh my god, there's a lot. Okay, there's way too many songs in this scene, so I'm just gonna put them up on screen. Happy? Okay, good. It is at this point that the condition in the patient takes a turn. In Faulty Recall 10, the final song of Act 1, it is the very end of it is where the patient's condition begins to shift, and that the patient enters mid-stage Alzheimer's. This is simply the beginning of Act 2. Welcome to Scene 5, listener. Scene 5, named The Sudden Pitfall, is the 5th scene of the Grand Decline and the 1st scene of Act 2, and starts with V19.1, New World. Scene 5 is a continuation, I'll say, of Scene 4, but think of Scene 4, but in its own way. The distortions are much more apparent, and the patient begins to reach total unawareness. In this scene, the moods between visits are very vast and random. Like, for example, Visit 19's mood is more tranquil, while Visit 21 is more fearful and anxiety-inducing. This scene contains my second favorite song of the Grand Decline, V25, Metamorphosis. I love this scene. Not as much as Scene 3, but I do find Scene 5 to be very well made in terms of the atmospheric changes, and showing the days before being admitted into a nursing home. Once again, I am not going to say all the track names, so I'm just going to put them up on screen. I'm probably going to do that for the rest of the video. Okay, there you go. There's all the songs. Scene 6, named The Frayed Recession, is the 6th scene of the Grand Decline and the midpoint of Act 2, and starts with Visit 24-1-301, which was released in full on October 29, 2023. Scene 6 is considered to be the first post-awareness scene of the Grand Decline, which makes it the beginning of anosognosia, which is the complete unawareness of one's condition. This scene is probably one of my least favorites because it's really just a nothing burger. There's nothing really interesting that I've heard in Scene 6. Now, does that mean I hate Act 2? No. Act 2 is a great midpoint between early and late stage Alzheimer's. Anyways, here are the songs. Scene 7, My Beloved, here we go. Scene 7, named the Infernal Firmament, is the 7th scene of the Grand Decline and the final scene of Act 2, released in full on June 21st, 2024, and starts with the V28-1, Divination of the Heart. Now, Scene 7 is considered to be the point in which the protagonist passes clinical stage 6 of Alzheimer's, in which neurons begin chipping away, leading to chaos and making a freeform soundscape within the entire scene. And also, Scene 7 is considered to be the climax of all of the Grand Decline. Now, you know that one song that brings up how much you like an album by a couple of points? This is more like a transition between two songs. V28-7, Math in the Oil, and V29-1, Dead Reckoning. Take a listen. Boom! Imagine trying to sleep to Scene 7 and you get jump scared awake hearing Dead Reckoning. Anyways, here are all the songs. Scene 8, the 8th and penultimate scene of the Grand Decline, and the first scene of Act 3, named The Great Minimal, starting with the first song, Visit 32-1, Imprints, and was released in full on August 19th, 2024. The scene portrays clinical stage 7, in which motor and verbal skills are chipped away, and the protagonist is now in the moment, without anxiety or fear, but also without peace or joy. Scene 8 is good. Perfect ambience, perfect soundscapes. Arroyo, though, that one, that's pretty damn good. I really like that one. That's probably my favorite out of all the songs in Scene 8. Other than that, I don't really have much to say about Scene 8, other than it's just a good representation of clinical stage 7 of Alzheimer's. Think of it as Everywhere at the End of Time's stage 6, but like, less bassy, I guess. The problem is that all three visits, 32, 33, and 34, are all over an hour long, which is longer than most of Everywhere at the End of Time's individual stages, might I add. Anyways, here are the songs. We're almost done. Scene 9, the end. The 9th and final scene of the Grand Decline and the final scene of Act 3. Only 5 tracks. Scene 9, named The Blind Veil, starting with Visit 35-1, Thinning Margins, were released in full on September 1st, 2024. Rattling the Bows and Chimes represents their last day. Visit 36 represents 3 ways someone dies, psychologically, mentally, and socially. Each of these are represented as their own track in Visit 36. The final track, 0000, represents the clock striking midnight, and the patient being, quote, forgotten by the masses. This is probably the best ending to a fan project I've ever heard in my entire life, because it shows 3 different ways that someone could die. You know, psychologically, mentally, and socially. And also has one of the longest tracks in the entire album, Rattling of the Bows and Chimes, coming in at 53 minutes. And if you know me, you know I really like long tracks. Case in point, all the post-awareness at Everywhere at the End of Time. Finally, the tracks are as follows. Thinning Margins, Rattling of the Bows and Chimes, The Absolutes, Eikengral, and 0000. And that is the Grand Decline explained. To the best of my abilities, at least.